Tales of Auntie Grace, don't sit there, that seat's for real family. My son said that at his baby shower. So I got up and took off. They used to call me Grace Hartley. Or at least they once did. These days I sometimes feel like a ghost in the very ranch house I poured my life into building. A faded photo on the wall. No one remembers the name behind it. A habit that lingers long after the reason for it has been forgotten. I spent a lifetime tending this home, keeping the pilot light burning so it would never go out. I thought that was love until the day I realized the warmth that held everyone else together never truly reached me. May I ask you something? Have you ever given everything you had only to discover there's zip left for yourself? And then the day comes when silence weighs heavier than any words. When surrender and resistance are separated by a single breath. Who will you be in that moment? The story I'm about to tell? That's my answer. And it doesn't begin with a bang. It begins with a whisper in the middle of a party full of laughter. My son said, "Nah, Mom, don't sit there. That seat's for real family." He didn't say it loud. Just loud enough for me to hear. Loud enough for me to understand. Loud enough that I'll never forget. The party was being held in the house I spent a lifetime building. 2 stories, weathered roof shingles, a backyard overrun with Kentucky bluegrass. I remember every dollar that went into it. Every brick I laid with my own 2 hands, the way my late husband, Tom, used to tinker with the aluminum awning under the yellow porch light. I remember Austin's first cries in the room to the right of the stairs. Every scuff, every corner, every floorboard has my fingerprints on it. But lately I felt like a guest in my own home. An afterthought. Last night, the night before the party, I'd been quietly looking forward to it. I couldn't sleep. A draft slipped through the window cold. I lay still, eyes open, staring at the ceiling, washed in the weak glow from the streetlights outside. Then I heard it. Tess's voice, low and bitter, drifting from their master suite. Then Austin's, clipped and tired. They thought I was asleep. Or maybe they just thought I'd grown too used to silence to hear anything at all. "I've had enough," Tess snapped. "She's never gonna leave." "Then we'll have to make her," Austin replied. "She has no right to stay here." My fingers tightened on the corner of the blanket. "Whose name is even on the deed?" he asked, uncertain. "We agreed, didn't we?" Tess muttered. "Don't make a scene. Just keep her happy. Get through the shower. Then we talk to the lawyer, get her into assisted living, have her sign the release." There was a long sigh. My son, the same little boy who once sat on my lap with milk on his chin, was sighing in frustration at the idea of removing the woman who raised him from the house she built for him. He thinks I'm old. He thinks I've forgotten. He forgets the nights I sat beside his bed when his fever ran high. The mornings I swept the porch before sunrise, made breakfast, then hoofed it to my shift at the diner to cover his tuition. He forgets every corner of this house is soaked in my sweat. And what he doesn't know is this house still bears my name. I stayed silent until the voices stopped. No tears came, but something broke quietly inside. So today, while the house is dressed in blue and white balloons and spotless lace tablecloths for the baby shower, I feel heavy. I stand in the kitchen, flowers still clinging to my hands from the cookies, watching guests pile gifts from designer stores onto the table. The room is loud with laughter, with toasts and congratulations. I'm not the center of this world. I'm just a passerby, and soon I may not even be that. I see Tess across the room, her hand resting on her round belly. The grandchild soon to arrive, the one I thought I'd share in the joy of. I carry the tray of homemade pastries through the crowd. No one moves aside. No one offers help. I place it on the long table, wipe my hands with a napkin, and that's when I see it. The chair in the center of the living room, covered in delicate white lace, a seat of honor for Tess, the place where all eyes, all cameras will turn. I took a step toward it, then another. My hand brushed the back of the chair, and Austin came over. "Mom," he said softly, eyes down. "Don't sit there. That's for real family." That sentence, stacked on top of everything I heard the night before, was the final cut. I stopped, let my hand fall away. No questions, no argument. I looked at him longer than usual, long enough to see the way he avoided my gaze, long enough to understand more than I ever wanted to. I nodded like an old maple tree by the porch, swaying with quiet dignity. No smile, no words. I turned away, walked through the crowd. No one stopped me. No one called my name. The staircase waited in the corner. Each step creaked as I climbed. The music and laughter faded behind me. At the end of the hallway, my room, the one I moved into after giving them the master bedroom. I opened the drawer. My fingers found it immediately. The worn blue folder. Inside, the deed, the insurance papers, the bank documents, all under my name. Grace Hartley. I pulled out one sheet. Bold letters across the top. Notice to vacate. The space at the bottom waited for a signature and a date. Picked up the pen. My hand was steady. I wrote today's date. Signed my name carefully. Folded it. Slipped it into a pale envelope. Sealed it. No name on the outside. Just 2 words. Congratulations. I didn't linger. Just one more moment at the window, listening to the wind rustle the leaves. The oak tree out front was shedding, each leaf falling slowly, spiraling down onto cracked concrete. I took the envelope, headed downstairs. The party hadn't missed a beat. Laughter, glasses clinking, wrapping paper tearing. I walked through it all invisible. No one looked up. I reached the gift table. Among the glossy boxes and fancy bags, I placed my envelope. Small, plain, but heavier than anything else there. I stood straight, took one last look around. No one noticed. No one asked where I was going. I turned, walked to the front door. The brick steps cracked beneath my feet. Afternoon light spilled long shadows over the yellowing lawn. I pulled my keys from my pocket, locked the front door. The sound echoed sharp, final. My trusty Chevy was parked 3 houses down. I walked slowly, a small overnight bag slung over my shoulder. I brought nothing but a few clothes, some essentials, that folder, and memories no one wanted to remember. I slid into the driver's seat, started the engine. No radio, no lights, just the low hum of something beginning. In the rearview mirror, the house shrank, the door still wide open, figures moving inside. Laughter drifting through the cracks. I didn't look back. The streets were quiet. The sun leaned low, stretching soft beams across the sidewalk. I turned onto Main Street. The car moved forward, smooth and steady, taking with it the dust and all the things that no longer had a place in my life. I rolled down the window. The ocean wind rushed in, salty and cold. It tangled my hair, carrying with it the scent of sea, wild grass, and the past. I thought of the night we first moved in, keys in hand, eyes full of hope. I thought of the coins I counted for Austin's tuition, the TV dinners I ate alone, the nights Austin snapped, "Mom, stay out of my life." I used to think time could wear down resentment, but it didn't, only wore me down. I'm not angry, not bitter, just empty. So empty there's no room left for words. Some things aren't lost in a storm of tears. They disappear in quiet afternoons, in eyes that look away, in a sentence whispered just low enough to kill what once was. Don't sit there. That seat's for real family. I drove away, left behind the noise that never meant anything. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I left. But what I left behind won't be so easy to ignore. My son must have torn open the envelope labeled "Congratulations" after the shower ended, staring at the paper inside like it was the first time he realized the house had never truly been his. I wasn't there to see it. After I left, I checked into a small roadside motel. A Motel 6 just outside of town, trying to piece together what was left of me. My suitcase held only a few changes of clothes and the blue folder. The next morning, just as the sun came up, my cell phone rang. It was Austin. His voice was panicked, laced with anger. "Mom, what the heck are you doing? What is that paper supposed to mean?" "It means exactly what it says," I replied. My voice was steady. Even I was surprised. "You can't do this. That's our home, mine and Tessa's." "Whose name is on the deed, Austin?" Evan's silence, long and cold. Then he muttered through gritted teeth, "You need to come home. We need to talk." "I'm not coming back," I said. "If you want to talk, you'll come to me." I gave him the address. About an hour later, they showed up. Austin looked rumpled, his t-shirt wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. Tess followed behind, face icy, though I could see the worry just beneath it. They sat across from me in the plain little motel room. "Mom." Austin's voice had softened. "You know, Tess and I, we need that house. The baby's coming any day now." I took a sip of water. "That house," I said calmly, "is still in my name. And that letter gives you 30 days to make arrangements." Tess gripped Austin's hand. "You can't just throw us out like this," she said. "You're his mother. You're going to be a grandmother." I looked straight at her, then turned to Austin. "My son told me I wasn't real family," I said. "So I owe nothing to the real family he's chosen." The room went still, breathless. After a long pause, Austin stood. "You're going to regret this." He pulled Tess up by the hand. Neither said another word as they walked out. The days that followed were quiet. No calls, no messages. I started researching the legal process, just in case they refused to leave willingly. One afternoon there was a knock at my door. It was Donna, Tess's mother. She swept in on a cloud of cheap perfume. Older than me by a few years, with bright blonde hair and glossy red nails. "Grace, honey," she drawled. "I've heard all about it. Sounds like you're making life difficult for the kids." I invited her in politely. "They need space," she went on, setting down her designer purse and giving me a look like I was something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. "They're starting a family. The last thing they need is to be saddled with an old woman. You should really do the right thing." I gave a faint smile. "They want the house," I said, "but not the person who built it." Donna shrugged. "Honestly, who wants to live with someone stuck in the past? You should be checking into a retirement home by now." At least she said it straight. I preferred that. Better than Austin's weak smiles or Tessa's sugar-coated cruelty. I stood. "Thank you for stopping by, but I have things to do." She pursed her lips and left, not without throwing me one last condescending glance. They think I'll break. That a piece of paper isn't enough. But they forget I lost my husband when Austin was 4. I raised him alone. No help, no backup, just me in that house. I don't need anyone's approval. Just silence and one sheet of paper that holds up in court. Some wounds don't bleed, but they're sharp enough to cut through an entire life. The 30-day notice I left behind came and went. Austin and Tess showed no signs of moving out. Each time I passed the house from a distance, the doors remained closed, the curtains drawn. Their silence felt less like denial and more like a dare. I understood then a letter from an old mother didn't carry enough weight. It was time for the law to speak. I reached out to Reed Johnson, an old friend of Tom's and now my attorney. After I laid out everything and handed over the deed in my name, he looked at me and nodded. "You have full rights over the property, Grace. We'll proceed by the book." A few days later, an official eviction notice bearing the red stamp of Reed's office was sent by registered mail straight into Austin's hands. This time it wasn't a warning from his mother. It was a legal document with a deadline, 1 week. I didn't show up in person. Reed handled everything. I stayed in my motel room and waited. During that week, Austin called a few times. His voice had changed, no longer angry or sure of himself. There was pleading now. Stories of how hard things were. Tess was due any day. They couldn't find another place. He said I was throwing my own family out into the street. I listened. I didn't interrupt, but I didn't promise anything either. "You had 30 days, Austin," I said quietly. "Now my lawyer will speak with you." Tess called too. She sobbed into the phone, calling me heartless, telling me I was destroying their happiness, that the baby wouldn't have a roof over its head. "When the baby is born," I told her, "if you truly need help, I can offer support as a grandmother, but the house is mine." The call ended with her muffled crying and my silence. They thought they could push me out with sharp words and cold shoulders, but the name on the deed was still mine, and this time it was protected by the law. One evening, Austin forgot to hang up after a call. I stayed on the line a moment longer. I heard Tessa's voice in the background, sharp, frustrated. "You're really going to let her kick us out like this? Do something." Austin didn't respond. Maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to understand. My silence was never weakness. When they called me a burden, I said nothing. But the house didn't stay silent. I remembered who built it. A week had passed since the legal notice was delivered. Each day dragged by in stillness. The house became a quiet battlefield. Tess packed in silence. Austin sorted their things without a word. No arguments, no defiance. They knew this time the power was no longer theirs. That morning I decided to go see for myself. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. When I arrived, the front door was ajar. I stepped inside. Austin stood in the doorway of the living room, hands in his pockets, his face drawn and pale. Tess stood behind him, arms cradling her belly, her eyes sharp with resentment. They were loading the last boxes into the car. I didn't speak. I simply stood in the corner watching. I heard footsteps upstairs, the scrape of something heavy being dragged across the floor, the soft slam of a door closing for the last time. They heard my footsteps echo on the tile as I walked into the kitchen to pour myself a glass of water, but no one looked up. Then the sound of a car door slamming shut outside. Through the window I saw the faded silver SUV stuffed with bags, boxes, everything. Austin behind the wheel, Tess beside him, her face like winter frost. The engine growled. Then the car rolled forward, slowly, heavily, as if it too didn't want to leave. I sat down at the old dining table, still holding my glass of water. And only after the sound of the car disappeared into the distance did I let out a long, quiet breath. Not a victory, not revenge, just the return of something that should have never been taken. I stood and walked the house slowly. Everything was still here. The scratches on the wood floor, the walls stained with time, the window hinges that groaned in the wind. All the things Tess wanted to replace. All the things Austin wanted to sell. All the things I had protected for 30 years. I opened the back door and stepped outside. The old oak stood tall, its roots deep in the soil, its branches clawing at the gray sky. Dry leaves rustled beneath my feet. Rough, brittle sounds, but alive. I bent down and picked up a broken branch. Splintered, weathered, but not yet rotted. Like me. I sat on the back steps, turning the branch in my hands. The wind shifted. It was sharp, biting. Each breath came out as a pale cloud. There was no one left to call me a burden. No one left to fake sympathy. Just me, the house, and the old oak tree, bearing silent witness to all that had been lost and reclaimed. Evening fell. Darkness settled thick and cold. I went back inside, locked the door, locked out the noise, the greed, the lies. In the kitchen, the kettle was still there. I turned on the stove. The water began to bubble. A small, steady sound, soft but warm. Enough to fill the empty space. I poured the water into a mug, brewed a weak cup of Earl Grey, sat at the table, holding it in both hands, letting the warmth soak into my callous palms. That night I slept soundly for the first time in years. No longer weighed down by dreams of a home filled with laughter, with light, with the love that was once promised but never truly given. Just me and the truth. Solid, rough but real. They left on a windy morning. No goodbyes. I didn't ask for one. The sky was clear, sharp blue, but the wind hissed through the cracks of the old windows, dragging dry oak leaves in its wake. I had stayed in the house the night before in my old room. That morning I sat on the front steps, hands wrapped around my usual cup of coffee. Black, no sugar. The steam curled into the cold air, soft and silent. I had seen them, Austin and Tess, as they began loading the last few boxes into the car. Things they didn't have time to pack yesterday, or simply didn't care to. I didn't look at them directly, didn't speak. The wind tugged at the hem of my coat, sharp and unforgiving. But I was used to this kind of cold. The kind that doesn't come from weather but from people. The faded SUV sagged under the weight of everything they owned. Austin slammed the trunk shut harder than he needed to. Tess climbed into the passenger seat without looking back. Austin lingered for a moment beside the door. His face was worn, his eyes heavy with things unsaid. For a brief second I thought he might say something, an apology maybe, or a goodbye. But he didn't. He got in the driver's seat. The engine turned over with a dull rumble. Then the car pulled away, slow and heavy, as if it too didn't really want to go. I sat there, gripping my coffee just a little tighter, watching until the car disappeared behind the old trees. The wind carried the scent of sea salt and damp earth from last night's rain. No one looked back. Neither did I. A long time passed before I finally stood and walked slowly toward the front door. The house was quiet now. The only sound, the groan of wood underfoot. I moved from room to room, opening every window wide, letting the wind and sunlight rush in, sweeping out the last of the lingering shadows. On the living room windowsill I placed a pot of red geraniums, a flower that loves the wind, takes the sun without complaint, asks for little, yet survives. That afternoon I trimmed the oak out front, cut away the dead branches that had cracked in the winter wind. Each cut firm, deliberate, clean. I gathered the clutter they left behind. Shredded papers, empty Starbucks cups, a few soulless paintings. I burned them in the old fireplace. The flames crackled, consuming the remnants of what no longer belonged. The warmth spread slowly through the house, chasing away a chill that had crept in years ago and made itself at home. As night fell, I locked the doors, drew the curtains, opened the old cabinet, and pulled out the worn blue folder. I checked everything one last time. My signature still bold, still mine. I placed the folder inside the small safe and set a new code. Code only I know. Darkness settled. But this time the silence wasn't empty. It was peaceful. I brewed a pot of tea, sat by the fire, watching the red glow gnaw at the ash of what once was. Outside the wind still blew. But inside I knew this time no one would blow me out of this house again. No one, not even the ones I once loved until there was nothing left of me. They were gone. And the house, though empty for the first time, was filled with a different kind of quiet, the quiet of freedom. Some goodbyes don't need tears. They don't need parting words. Just a turn back. And you understand it's truly over. Time passed quietly. Seasons came and went. The old oak in my front yard kept shedding and growing brilliant in the summer sun, bare and resilient in winter's gray. I grew used to the silence of the house. Not the heavy, lonely kind, but the peaceful, steady kind that feels like freedom. Sometimes I'd sit quietly on the worn front steps, hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea, listening to the wind whisper through the leaves. I no longer clung to what was lost, and I no longer resented those who had hurt me. Austin and Tess, I heard through an old acquaintance in town that they struggled for a while before settling into a rented apartment in another city. They had a baby boy. That's all I know. A flicker of something stirred inside me. Not sorrow, not joy, just a quiet acceptance. That life moves forward in its own strange way. I didn't reach out. They didn't either. Some doors once closed aren't meant to be opened again. I learned to care for myself. I made friends with the little garden behind the house. The rows of vegetables and patches of flowers I planted with my own hands gave me a simple, steady kind of joy. Neighbors would stop by sometimes, bringing extra herbs or fruit from their own yards, or just a smile and a few kind words. There was a time I believed that if I just sacrificed enough, endured enough, family would always stay whole. I was wrong. There are moments, if you don't protect your own worth, when even the ones you love the most can turn their backs on you. Like a roof that's sheltered through every storm, only to be forgotten, as if no one remembers who built it with bare hands, who kept it standing with quiet sacrifice. In the end, I found peace in the most unexpected way. Not in a crowded table or busy house, but in self-reliance, in knowing my worth, in daring to defend it. This house, it's more than just property. It's proof of a life worked for, a love given fully, and the hard-earned lessons that came with it. If this story makes you think of the quiet hands that once kept you warm, take a moment, just one, to remember, to be grateful, to truly honor them. Because no one has the right to make you feel small in the home you built with your heart, unless you let them. And sometimes silence isn't surrender. It's waiting for the right moment to stand up and reclaim what was always yours. I take another sip of tea. The late afternoon wind drifts through, carrying the scent of jasmine from the garden. For the first time in many, many years, my heart feels truly at peace. There are days when I sit quietly in this house, listening to the wind sweep across the steps, hearing the old oak leaves rustle outside the porch. I used to believe that if I just loved enough, gave enough, family would always stay whole. But I've come to learn what isn't nurtured with respect, no matter how steadfast, will eventually fade. I no longer hold blame, no longer cling to regret. I've learned how to care for myself, how to tend the little garden out back, how to lean on the one person who's never left me. In this house I built with my own hands. If this story makes you think of the quiet hands that once kept you warm, take a moment to feel grateful, to truly honor them. Because sometimes silence isn't surrender. It's waiting. Waiting for the right moment to stand tall and reclaim what was always yours. I take another sip of tea. Outside, the evening wind drifts by, carrying the scent of jasmine from the corner of the garden. And for the first time in many, many years, I know deep in my bones I've finally come home.